It's the Magenta Pixie and Dawn show. They're coming at you today with esoteric wisdom. You can ask a question and they might answer it with higher dimensional wisdom. Wisdom, yeah. So come on down and access the healing and the vibrations of the new energy. And they're on now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you for that intro.
Amazing.
Hello, Mike Thompson. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Chris.
Turn this a bit towards.
Okay, so that was my lovely partner singing us in. So I have today with me the lovely Dawn Holliday.
Dawn Holliday.
Okay, thank you. I have with me today the lovely Dawn Holliday. She's joining me live from my house.
I am.
And she came round to see me today, and we've had a whole day of chatting and talking, and then we thought we'd go Facebook Live, just a bit of last minute. So we were just talking actually before we started to do this about, I said to Dawn, you to me are a daughter of the flame. So what that means is a woman who is perhaps in the position of, the age of, it doesn't have to be to do with age, but in the position of not necessarily a spiritual teacher, but somebody who has awareness, passes that awareness to the younger female. That younger female already has that same awareness within the DNA, but the mother figure passes that to the daughter. So to me, Dawn is my daughter of the flame, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Yes. So we just wondered if anyone has any questions for us. If not, I've got some comments here that were put on some of the statuses I've done recently, so we can look at those.
Yeah.
And
we'll start with them.
And Dawn can comment as well, can't you?
I shall try.
So one of my statuses on Facebook that I recently posted is, as we begin to understand our own infinite nature, seeing the event horizon of our own sacred architecture, our environment mirrors our consciousness. The borders create the individualization and the sovereignty, and only then can we have unity. Excuse the giggles, we've been messing around all day, so we're really giggly at the moment. Trump's goals for border security and the wall, physical or not, are completely in alignment with the ascension timeline and the creation of the new 5D Earth. So there's 24 comments on that. So someone has written, Dear Petra Pixie Maguire, that's me on Facebook, I understand Trump helps to fight with the deep state. Would you mind to elaborate why the wall is in alignment with ascension? Would the wall symbolize separation? It's a really, really good question. Do you want to comment on that one? So yeah, Trump's fighting the deep state. I mean, obviously from our perspective, we shouldn't be, from the perspective of service to others, starseeds, we shouldn't be seeing it as a fight, because we don't want the energy of fighting. But obviously President Trump is coming predominantly from third dimensional point of view, so he's in a conflict for sure, and he is aware of the deep state, if you like, and all he really wants is a fair political situation and a country that is, you know, successful. And every time he tries to do something that he knows inside is correct and right, he's being blocked, and he's learning more and more about the individuals that are blocking him. He doesn't really know fully why. He knows some of the reasons why. He doesn't know the full reason why, and few people do. Would you mind to elaborate why the wall is in alignment with ascensions? That's a really good question. So as was said in the status, as we learn about our infinite nature, we understand our own divine architecture, which is, it doesn't have a border as such, but because we are individual infinity structures, simply because we are all and everything and we are source, there is, if you like, a boundary to that infinity, simply because outside of the oneness of source, there is the perception of others. So in the true reality, there is only one individual, that is you, but in the experienced reality, there are many. So the border of our infinity is simply some kind of graph or measurement or scale for us to be able to understand in a third dimensional sense what an infinite structure means. Some of us, when we are not in a state of ascension and activation, we do not understand our own infinite nature, and we don't understand the understanding of the border. We don't understand what the infinity means. But as we are ascending and as we are raising our vibration and moving our DNA collectively into this new configuration, we're learning about this. We are understanding that there is a border to the infinite structure that we are, but it isn't a border, it's an event horizon, meaning it's simply a boundary, but it's not a boundary one ever reaches, because when you are an infinite structure, you can never reach that boundary, because that boundary doesn't actually exist. What that boundary is a it's simply there for us to be able to understand our own divine architecture. The boundary, which we call an event horizon, is in the same place as the core. So the central point of who you are, which is the 0 point, it is the singularity, it is the place of you that is source, is the same place as the event horizon. So I'm saying all of this to explain that this is the awareness we're coming to within ascension. And in order to come to this ascension, this awareness within ascension, which is an awareness of infinity and unity, we have to understand the compartmentalization of our divine architecture. We have to understand what the boundary means, what the event horizon means. So as we do this, the star seeds have a very wide reach, if you like, with their consciousness. So everything that they are going through creates like a signal that is broadcast out into the ether and becomes part of a collective consciousness. That is all about the understanding of our infinite nature and the integration that we go through as we understand this, which must be part of coming to sovereignty. And in order to do this, there has to be a boundary. Only when we understand our own infinite nature through the boundary, the event horizon, only then can we experience unity. So that consciousness is broadcast, and our environment that we experience, our reality, is a complete match to us. It's a match to us on an individual level because we are the only individual that exists, but it's also a match to the collective awareness, which is the collective awareness of the awakened individuals. This would then create a match within our environment. And so countries are also going through the same thing. So are families and houses and all the different sections of reality. So countries will be going through this. They will be learning about their boundary.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it kind of represents within us that we are learning to keep out certain energies that we don't want in our own auric field, and learning our own boundaries with people around us, energies around us? We're not putting ourselves in positions that are opening us up to anything negative or that lowers our vibration. And it's about, I mean, from a 3D perspective, it might look backwards, the whole wall thing. It looks like we're taking a step back, but I think you've said before, we kind of are in a way, in order to take 2 steps forwards in the future.
Yeah,
it's really mirroring what a lot of people are going through now, which is like standing in their own sovereignty and saying, no, this is my limit, and no, I'm not allowing this into my energetic field.
Absolutely. On one level, it is the understanding of what we are beyond being human, as in this geometric presentation of us as a matrix, as a soul. On another level, it's everything you said. It's how we experience our physical reality and how we learn to be sovereign. We don't allow these certain energies in unless we choose to allow these energies in. So our event horizons
have wanted these
Exactly.
energies to come into not only
exactly
on a larger scale with their
Exactly.
countries, but into our
yes
bodies and our auric
Yes.
fields through,
yes
you know, Hollywood and music and the food and the spraying of the skies. They wanted that, you know, they wanted to affect us negatively and keep us dumbed down.
yeah
And now we're saying no. And it's
Exactly.
a bit of a representation of that, I feel. In some ways.
Absolutely. It's like we choose what we allow into our personal space.
Yeah.
But the country chooses what they allow into their personal space. And so the wall, whether it's an actual physical wall or a barrier, and obviously an actual physical wall is going to work better because it's in an actual physical third dimensional reality, that will start to keep out that which we do not want to come into the boundary of the country, allow in what we want to allow in. And you're right, it's a backwards way round, because the next part of this question is, would the wall symbolize separation? Yes, it absolutely does symbolize separation. However, you cannot have unity without integration, and you cannot integrate yourself until you have become separate. When you
recognize polarities,
yeah,
in order to integrate them, you have to recognize them first.
Absolutely. When we incarnate here, we're separate from source, but we don't understand the meaning of true separation. And as we grow, we learn, as we grow in enlightenment, and obviously within an ascension path, we learn about separation. We understand about unity. We understand that we are separate, and we integrate that separation, and it becomes activated, it becomes cohesive. And then when that happens, you are sovereign. And then when all the other selves, whether they be geometric structures, as in matrices, or whether they be individual incarnated people, or whether they be other countries, when they're all also integral and cohesive, and they each have their own individualized structure, and they're all cohesive and balanced and symmetrical in their formation, then the boundaries can come down at your choice, because that's when you become unified. But what happens energetically is each infinite structure fits together. So if I'm aware of my infinite structure as a geometric being, and Dawn is aware of her infinite structure as a geometric being, I can choose, or I can understand that I'm perhaps a dodecahedron, if you like. There are many different configurations, and Dawn can choose and understand that she's a dodecahedron, and we can fit together to create a different and more complex structure. That is what is happening with the countries, but we haven't got there yet. And until we actually create the boundary, that's why it's in alignment with the Ascension timeline, because the Ascension timeline is about understanding our infinite nature. It's about becoming sovereign. It's about saying no to infiltration and control and being one's own master. It's about mastery. And we're all in different stages of this. And these borders, whether it's a non-literal wall like Brexit in Britain, or whether it's an actual wall like in the US, that's the mirroring of what's happening to us on a collective consciousness level.
100%.
So that's the response to that question.
There's an interesting question here about alcohol, because someone in Destroying the Illusion group, shout out to Catherine Dworkin, she once mentioned recently that cannabis isn't really having as much of an effect on her, and a lot of people were agreeing that that was the case. Things with cannabis and alcohol aren't really having the same effect, and I actually have noticed that that's happening for me when I have a drink. So Chris Oldham said,
quite a few people in my group and another are noticing that alcohol, pot, and other such things are having no effect, no buzz, etc. What do the 9 have to say about this?
That I would find that interesting to
Okay.
answer, or what you feel, if that's like a collective thing everyone's experiencing, or is it just...
No, it's not a collective thing that everyone is experiencing. Different people are at different stages. So you've got some individuals who've been using these substances in the past, and obviously alcohol and pot are completely different. So I'll try to generalize with both of them. So you've got individuals who've been using these substances and they're becoming immune to anything that changes their vibration. So it's almost as though, let's for example take pot, if you like, take weed, because that's different. That can actually raise the vibration of an individual if their own overall energetic vibration is lower than the vibration of the pot itself. Then the pot can raise the vibration for that individual. When that individual gets to the same vibration as the pot and goes beyond it, the pot won't do anything anymore. These are only some individuals, however. Other individuals react differently, but that's one group. Alcohol, that's more about toxicity. That's more because pot's not a toxin in the same way that alcohol is. So when alcohol enters the system of someone who is rapidly detoxing, then it's not having the same effect on them because the body's detoxing it out so very well. Those people would be ascending, raising the vibration, changing the DNA configuration, and able to detoxify quickly. Other individuals are having the opposite. They can be even more affected by these substances than ever before, to the point where they can't take them at all. Because their sensitivity is working in a different way, just like we're all unique. Exactly, we're all unique in the kind of food that's good for us. And one man's what's that saying, one man's thing is another man's poison? What is that? I don't know, but that's what it means. So some people are having the opposite effect, where pot or alcohol would actually affect them worse. But some people are finding, because the way that the DNA configuration, the upgrades, the changes in frequency and the raises in frequency affect us all, there are these unique ways that this comes out in a physical level. If you are finding that these things aren't affecting you anymore, then it is a sign that something's going on with you energetically. You don't need it anymore. If you're finding that you are extremely sensitive to it and it's affecting you worse, or perhaps, as the questioner said, it doesn't give you that buzz. That's another thing. In the third dimensional state, you would get a buzz from alcohol because you'd feel different and you'd be entered into multidimensionality for a short time. So it gives you a euphoric buzz. There is obviously a crash down with alcohol. Somebody who's already in a state of euphoria, because opening up the DNA structure and opening up the cells is bringing bliss and euphoria into the system, and you're experiencing it more. You're not going to notice any buzz. You're actually going to start drinking and thinking, you know what? That was flat. I didn't enjoy it.
Tired, dehydrated.
Yeah.
And the buzz that I felt before, like, it's not there because I was already higher than the buzz that alcohol could give, I guess.
Exactly. So we are changing very much in a physical way. For me personally, I haven't been able to take pot or alcohol for a long time. I've not drunk the slightest sip of alcohol for 9 years. My partner always tells me, don't tell people you gave up alcohol 9 years ago. They'll think you had a serious alcohol problem, because I'll say, I've been sober for 9 years, but I never had an alcohol problem. It's just that
I rarely drink either. I save it for special occasions. So you'd think that I would feel an effect when I did drink.
But you don't.
But I don't.
Yeah. That's because the vibration, and the detoxifying is going on.
Yeah.
With me, it just wasn't in alignment with me anymore. And I just knew it wasn't in alignment with me anymore. And I personally did not want any outside substance to be responsible for changing the way I experience consciousness. I did not want to feel out of control because of some substance. I wanted to have clarity, and I know I needed to be sober, if you like, to have that clarity. And I haven't missed it in the slightest. And in fact, I personally look at alcohol now as simply a toxin that isn't food, it isn't drink, and it isn't good for me, and it doesn't vibrate with me. As for pot, funnily enough, that was a great help to me when I first started to awaken, and it actually was a real trigger for me and really helpful. And I first started to not channel, I suppose, but I first started to communicate with a non-physical being through taking that. And that's when my psychic, well, it's always been there, but it kind of kicked it into a massive upgrade. But it didn't last long, as in the supportive, helpful aspect of pot, a few weeks, and I didn't need that anymore. It was counterproductive. Once I guess that's what had happened. I'd come to the vibration of it, and then it was no longer a tool to assist me. It was actually a negative tool. So it can be positive for some people, it can be negative for some people. What I would say about pot is, if you are using it to tranquilize yourself by taking it every single day to just sort of zone out, that isn't the way that is most best for it to be used. But if you are taking it once every 6 months, and you are intending that when you take it, it will be part of a vision quest, and that you will open up psychically and have visions and see things and open up to other beings, and your intuition will be triggered, you are using it correctly. And you must make sure that it is the actual wild plant that you are taking, and not some man-made synthetic copy. Any more to add to that?
Not really. I think we covered that well.
Okay.
There's a question about being drained by someone.
This one here?
Yeah.
I'm usually good at sensing, but not feeling another's negative. However, I have a dear friend who drains me for a full 24 hours with any contact. How can I control my own space when it comes to her? Amazing question. And we've all been there, haven't we? We all know these draining people. What it is you are learning, we all are learning to, as I've said, become sovereign and become empowered within our own space. There are individuals who have not done that yet themselves. They're not at that place where they can do that. So they need to gain energy from others, and they don't necessarily do this deliberately, but when they're around you, they say things and do things and act in certain ways, giving out a certain negative emotional signal that can be incredibly draining for an individual, because what you're having to do is give. Like, for example, me and Dawn, we communicate with each other. We've been talking to each other all day. I can talk to you all day long. You can talk to me all day long. What we do, because we're of like vibration, is replenish one another's fields. Whether we're joking, laughing, playing, having serious talks, it doesn't matter, or talking about our problems. You know, I might say, oh, Dawn, I'm feeling like this, or I'm feeling like that, and you'll tell me your problems. We don't drain each other because our energetic is the same. We are actually charging one another. It's like having a cell phone and plugging it in and charging it up. That's what the other does, that is of like vibration. It's another way to charge your fields by another who also has that mirrored charge, and you can literally feel that. When you come into contact with someone who isn't there, then they will psychically take from you, known as, I guess, a psychic vampire or an energy vampire. They don't know they're doing it.
Not consciously.
No. So that's very, very common. And Daniel, what is that?
It's an energy vampire.
So how can I control my own space when it comes to her? And that's a really good question. I mean, number one, if you are being drained every single time you see her, and you're saying drains me for a full 24 hours, right? So you're drained for 24 hours afterwards.
Wow.
Okay, so this is a two-way combination. Number one, she's an extremely strong energy vampire and is taking your energy from you. But no one can take your energy from you unless you allow it. And I'm not meaning that in a accusing way, because it happens to us all.
We have to remember to remain conscious of feeling the energy exchange between this other person and ourselves. And if we start to feel, oh, you know, I feel like I'm kind of losing something here and it's not being reciprocated, then there are things that we can do, you probably know more about this, that kind of just protects our field. And it's not as if our energy can't get out to them, but it's that they can't take it without us allowing it out. And
on some level we're allowing it, we're not consciously allowing it, because
Yeah.
we're not actually sitting there and saying I'm allowing you to drain me.
no,
We, on some level we are, but that isn't a fault and that isn't anything negative. It is because we are growing into our sovereignty. We are not fully, well, we are fully sovereign, but we haven't become fully sovereign within a third dimensional sense yet in the year 2019. There is a sequence to becoming sovereign on a linear level. So if someone is draining you for a full 24 hours, there are things that you can do psychically, many things that you can do that are very, very helpful. However, sometimes we have to go through a process where, and it sounds harsh, but we have to go through a process where we literally do not see that person. We remove ourselves from that person. We only spend 10 minutes with that person. We only see that person when we're feeling incredibly strong. If we are feeling a little bit vulnerable that day, or ill, or just not quite in alignment, we don't see that person, because we're not going to have the strength to be able to stay within that empowerment. So we have to balance this on a physical level. If this is a family member, it's very difficult. If this person lives with you, it is even more difficult, very, very difficult. So we have to control our space and think, can I live with this person? Can I see this person every day? You know, I have friends that I would only see once a week, or once a month, or once a year, or, you know, depending on the dynamic you have with your friend. But there are things that you can do. I mean, there are exercises you can do. I mean, one thing is to absolutely visualize that bubble around you, if you like. And my book Masters of the Matrix talks about creating the sovereignty by being aware of oneself as a matrix, and utilizing geometry. You know, you don't have to use geometry. You can imagine there's a pink bubble surrounding you, and that the border of the bubble is permeable, and you choose what you allow in and what you don't allow in. You can put mirrors all around that bubble, which reflect the energy back to the person that's giving it to you. Or if you don't want to accrue any karma whatsoever, if you like, from that action, you can turn the mirrors upwards and allow the energy to reverberate back into the cosmos, and surrender that to the higher cosmic beings to neutralize it. But a good way of doing this is through the geometry and understanding the geometric structure that we are, and learning how to work with that. But I would say to anyone who's being drained for a full 24 hours by someone, until you have, because you're vulnerable yourself, because you're in a learning phase. You don't just click your fingers and think, right, I'm going to wear this sort of watch that's going to protect me because it's made of crystal, which that does work, by the way. Crystals, you know, will protect you. Protection is not necessarily the right word, but crystals will help you with this situation and allow you to stay more empowered and not be drained. But even with tools such as orgonite, crystals, visualization, aura sprays, flower remedies, superfoods, all of these things, yoga in the morning, deep meditation every day, salt baths with Himalayan salt, all of these things can
every day
assist you.
That actually really helps if you've been in a situation, like if you've been out in crowds or in a busy city, or just a situation that's really drained you, and you come home and you notice that your energy is completely different than the day before or when you left, then a salt bath just does so much.
It's amazing.
Just double the dosage, just lying there for at least 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it helps clear your auric field.
It really does.
I don't know
really
what
does.
I do about salt baths, really, to be honest. And and just having your own the next day, like allow time for yourself. You can't be around, when you're going through this process, you can't be around people constantly. You need to have times where you're by yourself and you can go out into nature, be amongst trees and animals, and just that kind of helps cleanse you as well. being by the ocean, because there's the sea air that really helps.
Oh yes, definitely.
Um,
Walking by the sea. It's the same thing as
yeah.
the sea salt bath, because they're negative ions. They wash EMFs off you, help to detox, work on deeply spiritual levels, and
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. And if you're sensitive, you can feel that. So in
Yeah.
that 24 hours that you feel drained after seeing this person, you need to start replenishing that energy straight away. So you need to do these, you know, protective measures beforehand. Wear crystals when you see this person. Make sure you have eaten very high vibrational food that day, meditated that morning, done some yoga before you see this person. And then after you've seen this person, get working on the detoxing straight away. But my question to you, Dawn, is if you had a friend that drained you for a full 24 hours after you saw her or him, would you continue to see that person?
I'd have to really seriously consider, is it worth all this effort I'm putting into the protection and after? Like, it would have to be worth it in some way.
If you can see friends that are of like vibration, you will feel the opposite.
Yeah.
You will be charged for 24 hours. You know, when Dawn goes home tonight, I will feel happy and charged and connected and healed for 24 hours or longer. And she hasn't necessarily done anything, and I haven't done anything to her. We haven't healed each other in a actual hands-on healing sense, but we're charging one another because we're of like vibration. So if someone's draining you for a full 24 hours, one does have to think, am I able to, you know, it's a lot of work to have to sort of get your protection in first and get your detoxing in afterwards. It's the same thing as food. If eating white bread with refined wheat makes you feel awful for 24 hours afterwards, what can you do to be able to continue to eat white bread? Well, you can drink lots of water and take your sea salt baths and have some spirulina, but one has to then, and probiotics, exactly, but then one has to think, well, do we eat white bread or should we just give it up as it's making us so bad? I'm not saying
That's
to
my
stop.
Battle.
I'm not saying
my personal battle.
it is with all of us. You know, this is about the infinite structure and the boundaries. What do we allow in and what don't we allow in?
Yeah.
It's difficult when that's a beloved friend, someone you've known for years,
them,
a family member. It is difficult, so you've got to balance. But I think if it was me and somebody was draining me for 24 hours, unless this was one of my children, they can drain me for sure. But if it's one of your children or one of your family members, you're not going to cut contact with that person because of it. If it was someone who isn't actually related to me, I think I would take a major step back from contact until I felt that I was able to see that person and either not be drained or be drained a little bit, and that I could perhaps afford to allow. I personally wouldn't want that for anyone that's not in my family. And then I would regulate how often I see that family member. So somebody I'm not related to that was draining me, I personally would probably make the decision to take a step back from that friendship. I'd still want to help that person, but you can't help someone at the expense of your own energetic frequency. You need that energy for yourself.
You can still love someone from afar. And also, I think if we were like fully activated and sovereign, then no one could ever drain us. But it's very hard to live in this world and
it's very
be
difficult.
in that state.
Yeah, it's possible to do, and I tell you the way to do it. The way to do it with someone who's draining you is to remain within objectivity the entire time that you are with them. So you would be viewing that person and communicating with that person from the perspective of the higher self and from your guidance system. This would mean filtering pretty much everything they say.
Not getting triggered.
You would have to remain purely within objectivity, and you're not going to have a two-way conversation. It's like Dawn and I, using Dawn as an example, we don't remain in objectivity when we're together. We can switch in and out, but we can be subjective and not drain each other. But if you were with a friend and you can't be subjective with that person, it means you can't be third dimensional and physical and experience a linear reality with that person. You have to become once removed and stay in objectivity, and that in itself is extremely difficult at the moment, because we are going through all of these changes and these upgrades and these kundalini situations. So I would treat this person as an energy toxin, but obviously, as I've said, if it's a family member, and I think a lot of starseeds are in this position. So I absolutely do relate, and I can honestly say to you that I can't go and see every family member I have and be with them for hours and hours and hours on end. I would have to retreat, much as I love them. And yet somebody who you are in the same vibration with, you could remain with that person for hours and hours and hours on end if you chose to. What do you think? Any more to add to that?
Not really, no.
Okay. I am definitely ascending, and I'm basically feeling great.
Yay.
Why is my body wanting sugar? Okay. Is the energy necessary for processing? I'm using organic sugar, lol. It's so funny, and I'm normally not a sweets person. Yeah, what your body is craving is not sugar, as in refined sugar, or what are you using? Organic sugar. Your body isn't craving organic sugar. Your body wants the energy from the natural sweetness that is provided by this planet. What your body is craving is fruit.
I agree.
That is what you are craving, not organic sugar. Your body absolutely needs this, and your body will need this more as you ascend.
Agave syrup and things like that, which actually comes from a plant, which might be.
There are other sweeteners. I mean,
sugar.
Yeah, agave is said to have it's said to spike your blood sugar by some nutritionists. Others are saying it's fine. I personally would have no problem using a small amount of agave here and there. Honey, if you're not vegan and you're okay with
what about maple syrup?
Maple syrup, if it's a really good maple syrup, is wonderful. But you don't need those sweeteners, but they are 1,000 times better than sugar. And organic sugar, what does that really mean? It just means that it hasn't been grown with pesticides. Is it raw sugar? If it's raw sugar, then it's going to have some vitamins and minerals in it, as opposed to the refined sugar. But it will still spike your blood sugar. It is still a toxin. It doesn't matter how organic it is. It is the sweetness of fruit that your body is wanting, the energy of the natural fruits that have been provided for us on this planet. Your body is wanting peaches and apples and strawberries and blueberries and all of those things, and that's where your body needs to go, really, because anything else is unnatural. Refined sugar, even organic raw cane sugar, is part of the sugar cane, and it's been stripped from the sugar cane. You can have molasses. Some people can actually have their blood sugar spiked with that. But if you don't have blood sugar problems, molasses are really good. Blackstrap molasses are really good because you've still got the vitamins and minerals in there. But ultimately, it's fruit. It's the energy from fruit. It's the nectar. It's the ambrosia and the sweetness of life, which is provided by the earth through fruits. Anything to add there?
I totally agree. You're definitely craving fruit. I mean, I still have sugar and things with sugar in, but I'm feeling the call to move towards cutting especially cane sugar out of my diet. I feel it just doesn't really do anything positive for me anymore at this point in time.
Same sort of thing as
just give it a go with the fruit, and
yeah,
you'll probably find that the cravings at least lessen a lot, if not disappear.
And the cravings will disappear because the cravings are there because you're spiking the blood sugar. That's a physical craving, but there's spiritual cravings, which are not really cravings. They're not physical. They're more callings. They're more being drawn to that which is good for you. And as we ascend, we want in our sphere that which is in alignment with us. Sugar is not in alignment with an ascending being, as in refined sugar, but fruit most definitely is. And vegetables and all the other natural whole foods that the earth supplies. That's really the dietary needs of an ascending individual.
The only problem is at the moment, like, the soil is so depleted of minerals and vitamins compared to what it used to be, because
that's true.
Over farming. So It is difficult.
It is difficult, and I think if you're going to have fruit, get it from the cleanest, best source you can. Go organic, go to farmers markets, get local, grow your own.
See if you can, I like to grow strawberries at least and tomatoes. Just start off with a couple of little things, and you know what you're putting. You can put whatever you want into your soil, and you can feed it with what you want to, and you know what's gone into it. That
and add
feels
honey if you want to add honey. If you don't have a problem with the fact that it's from bees and you're not 100% vegan, add honey. Manuka honey from the bees that feed on the tea tree plant is really healing. Any raw honey will be better than a non-raw honey, but that's okay. Maple syrup's okay, agave's okay, molasses are okay. If you don't have blood sugar issues, all of those, but actual sugar, refined and non-organic is the worst, and then organic sugar is marginally better.
Organic brown raw cane.
Yeah, that's better. And if you don't,
it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and if you don't have any health issues and you're okay and you're not having any reaction to having raw cane sugar, then fine, go with your intuition about that. But what I see is an ascending individual is wanting to draw everything into their reality that's in alignment with them, and refined sugar is not in alignment with the ascending physical body, even though some individuals may well be able to eat it without any problems.
This is an interesting question from Soror Mansa. This has been brought up on a group that I'm part of a lot recently. People have been asking whether there are some humans who don't actually have a soul. They're kind of like default characters, NPCs, kind of empty, almost hollow people. I'm not sure what I feel about this, to be honest. I know there's a lot of different opinions about this.
Yeah, you never talk about non-player characters that have no connection to spirit. So organic portal that suck our energy and influence our thoughts and decisions. AI or artificial 99% of population maybe are non-player. That is why they never... 99% of the population are non-player. That's why they never wake up to truth. Please talk about it or tell us if you have any information. Star beings are player. They come from stars that are our souls. I never saw in your channel you really talk about it. Thanks so much. Love you. Thank you. Love you too. Yeah, the 9 have spoken about AI quite intensively, actually, in my recent book, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. There's a lot about AI in there. So what we're looking at here is different perspectives. There is not only one perspective. There are many perspectives, and each perspective has truth. So when we're looking about non-player characters that have no connection to spirit, what I would say is, from the perspective of the individual, when you say 99% of the population are a non-player character, from the point of view that you are the only individual in existence, then that is true. Everyone outside of you is a non-player individual. You are the only player from that perspective, and that perspective is truthful. So I've got Dawn sat to my left, I've got my partner sat over here to my right, but from that perspective, they are non-player characters. I am the only player, for I am the only individual that is source from that perspective. However, that perspective is very similar to a service to self perspective, who takes that into their reality and their experience and lives that way with the belief that I am the only true soul and everyone else does not really exist. And as long as I exist, then source exists, and it doesn't matter whether they exist or not. So it's very close to a service to self perspective. However, it isn't an untrue perspective. We can then go further and say that I am a player character, and anyone who's awakened and is a starseed, as you have said here, individuals who are from other stars, other players, the star beings. So I could then say Dawn, myself and my partner, we are 3 real characters with souls. But everyone who hasn't woken up, because they're not on the same vibration as where we are, then they are non-player characters. One could take that perspective as well if one wanted to. There is another perspective within this, which is the perspective where service to self individuals have actually managed to hijack individuals so deeply that it's not that they don't have a soul. A soul is a matrix. It's not that they don't have a matrix. It's just that their matrix is different, and the core is no longer sovereign. The core is broken. Therefore, you could say they were a non-player character because they've been hijacked by the service to self structure. That is another perspective. But there is also a perspective, and it's important when you are looking at something so mind-bending as this, it is important to take all perspectives. And there is another perspective where no one is a non-player character, and every individual on the planet has a soul. One must take that perspective into consideration as well. If you dismiss that, you become unbalanced, because you're only seeing the perspectives where many people don't have a soul. They're all non-player characters. That is true. But from the other perspective, everyone has a soul. They are all individualized. The service to self side of it is taking the matrix, the soul, and breaking the core and taking that individual into a hive mind mentality. So from that point of view, the soul isn't there in the same way. Somebody said this to me the other day: Cabal members don't have a soul. A soul is a matrix. Every physical structure has a matrix, but it is true that service to self individuals, their matrices are not the same as ours. They are very different in their configuration. Everything goes inward, for they consume energy. And with us, everything goes outwards, for we radiate energy. That doesn't mean they don't have a matrix. It's just a different configuration. One could take the perspective of the matrix with the radiating perspective, the radiating configuration is a soul, and a matrix with an inward moving, consuming configuration is not a soul. One could use that interpretation if one wants, and one wouldn't be incorrect by doing that. But if you want to have the biggest picture, you need all these perspectives on board. That is multidimensionality, multidimensional consciousness, bilocational consciousness, taking two different perspectives, trilocational consciousness, taking three, multi-locational consciousness, taking many. And that's where we need to be if we want to see the bigger picture. We don't want to subscribe to just one view, because if we do that, we're going to be walking around telling people that everyone's a non-player character and they don't have souls. And whilst that is true from one perspective, it's not something you're going to easily be able to communicate with others about, because it's only a tiny piece of the picture. Because over here, we've got a perspective where everyone has a soul and there are no non-player characters. So this is a multi-dimensional concept. Any more to add there? Do you agree with that, or would you?
I personally feel like anyone who's here has their own energy signature, and they do have, in my opinion, a soul. But there are some people who have come further along the path of what alchemists call individuation, or Carl Jung would call individuation, which is finding your own sovereignty and becoming your own whole being. And there are a lot of people who, like you say, are just going along with the hive mind. Their individual energy is a little weaker than others who have started to go within and kind of realize like all that they really are, and kind of, it's hard to describe really, but
what you're saying from that point of view,
become an individual, like a strongly individual and sovereign soul. Yeah.
So you could say that those who weren't doing that, who are not sovereign, who are not cohesive, who are not on the path to, did you say individuation, which the nine call individualization, same thing. If they're not on that path, then one could take the perspective that they are non-player characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could take that perspective.
But it isn't a perspective you would want to subscribe to on its own, because it could be unbalancing and ungrounding.
And it could be disempowering for
Disempowering.
these they are, they are beings, these souls that they have, tomorrow they may start the journey as well.
And the hive mind is breaking down as well.
Yeah.
One needs to take into consideration that those individuals that have been hijacked by the hive mind, and I don't just mean the general public that are 3D, I'm talking about individuals who've been deeply traumatized by the service to self structure. They are going to need more healing than any of us, because their core is fragmented. They're not able to find sovereignty.
We are acting as beacons to them. Like when we do this within ourselves and we go down this path, when we're kind of we're kind of like catalysts, I guess. And even just seeing an awakened sovereign person could be the one little straw that broke camel's back, so to speak, that kind of sparks someone else off on that journey. So there is another perspective, and that's obviously the poster mentioned AI. There is another perspective where you could have artificial intelligence walking around in physical bodies, and I know that has been spoken about, as in like an android or some kind of soulless artificial construct. From a physical level, from what I see from the 9, this has been attempted by service to self groups, but it just hasn't been successful. These AI structures that I'm talking about, that are actually walking around as physical beings, are they have a very short expiry to them. It's not a successful program. But I don't think that's what you actually meant. I don't think you were common.
No, I don't think you were talking about that. But I mean, AI is a massive, massive subject. We sit here all week and talk about AI. And as I said, the 9 have commented on artificial intelligence in Infinite Helix. So they have spoken about that.
So what about electromagnetic energies affecting our energy body? Like
what do you think,
fog?
Lisa Vinson, what do you think about electromagnetic energies affecting our body and energy body?
She's right. Christina, hello.
Oh yeah, she said you can use orgonite. Absolutely. I mean, we have discussed this already when we talk about the boundary, and somebody asked a question about someone draining them. But electromagnetic energies, I mean, we've got positive electromagnetic frequency. So Dawn's electromagnetic energy right now is affecting my energy body in a very positive way. And my electromagnetic energy would be affecting her electromagnetic energy in a positive way, as would be the case with anyone listening to our chat and anyone in the room who's of like vibration. But if you're meaning negative electromagnetic energy, so if you're talking about things like EMFs,
laptops, TVs,
I mean, crikey, you've asked the right person. Goodness me, I have terrible problems with EMF frequencies. So there are things that you can do, but you do need to know the level of your own sensitivity. So for example, with me, if I use a mobile phone and somebody calls me, I cannot hold the mobile phone to my ear. It will make me very dizzy and very ill. And it doesn't matter how much orgonite I've got. I can wear an orgonite suit. It isn't going to stop the EMF frequencies from a mobile phone making me dizzy and making me ill. And I will be ill for days. So I know where my limits are. And that doesn't mean that I'm weak and that I've got some terribly unhealthy body. It's because I'm extremely sensitive to unseen energetic frequency. Therefore, I'm bound to be sensitive to electromagnetic frequency. I do wonder how other spiritual individuals who are channels and who are intuitive, I wonder how they cope with this. I mean, how I do this is when it comes to mobile phones, I have to purchase either a very old model or a very cheap model. I can't have the latest smartphone. And I can't even use it away from my ear. So if I were to get, say, a Samsung 10, are we on 10? Samsung 10? Samsung 10 or an iPhone X or whatever. I mean, within half an hour, I'd start to feel dizzy. I could probably use it for a day. And I'm talking about it in front of me, scrolling around on Facebook and Twitter. After a day, I'd have a terrible headache. I would actually start to feel sick. I wouldn't be able to use that phone. So the only way I can use a mobile is to find a really old model, or a really cheap, take, say, I don't know, take a brand, Motorola, and go find their cheapest, most budget model for like $30 or whatever, and I'll be all right with that, because it doesn't have the intensity of these high end, top of the range smartphones. So that's just mobile phones. Obviously, we've got these electromagnetic frequencies everywhere, and they're coming in, I know, from 5G. On a physical level, on an ego level, I am concerned about 5G because of the way I react, but the 9 are telling me that it just won't work the way they think it will.
I'm like, when I think about it, there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, and I'm really scared. But then deep down, like on a gut level, I'm not actually worried. And I don't know why. Like, I feel like I should be worried.
Exactly.
But I'm not. And I don't really know why.
I feel the same, because you see, the consciousness that we are creating as aware starseeds is of such a high frequency now that it will not allow harm on a grand scale. So we've got individual, because of free will, of course, and there's individual harm going on because we're putting that, we're living that reality individually, and we have to balance that ourselves. But on a global level, on a sort of collective level, there is a collective antidote to these things. But absolutely, Orgonite can help with, say you live near a phone mast and you've loads of Orgonite in your house, or electromagnetic energies.
You can chuck it around your neighborhood, go and secretly place
all
it.
These things help. Orgonite's wonderful. Crystals are amazing. I've always got crystals on my body for this reason.
Which ones would you recommend for
protection? Personally, any crystal structure will help. I mean, they help for different things. Protection from EMFs. I do wear all sorts of different ones, to be honest. I wear obsidian, which is very grounding, which is the one I've got on now. A lot of the darker colours, like black stones, like hematite. Personally, I've just got loads of crystal bracelets, and I just wear the colour that coordinates with my outfit, actually. I don't actually think, I need amethyst today. I just think, I've got a purple top on, I'll wear my amethyst, which is really 3D. But the crystals themselves are all amazing, and I don't really like going through the day without having a crystal on my person somewhere, either on my bracelet, or I've got a crystal necklace, or I have crystals around me. So they're absorbing these frequencies. Foods are great, and I think things like the blue-green algae, like spirulina and chlorella, will help to detox from the electromagnetic frequencies. And of course, we've spoken about the sea salt baths, the Himalayan pink salt. Put lots in your bath. I mean, that wipes EMFs off, and if you're sensitive, you can feel it. You can literally feel that the EMFs are on your system, and you get into a sea salt bath and you can feel them coming off. Barefoot on natural ground, so barefoot on the grass, barefoot in natural water, the sea, the ocean, but also little brooks and streams that are fairly clean water, down on the stones, foot on rocks, on sand, all really, really good as well. That wipes the EMFs off you.
If
grounding
you've got
mats.
Nothing else. Concrete when it's wet is grounding, but not when it's dry, apparently.
Well, I would see that because you've got the conducting of the rainwater under your feet, and you can use crystals to stand on as well. So big obsidian crystals, red, black or silver, barefoot, and stand on, one crystal with your left foot and one crystal with your right foot. And when you're on the computer, you can actually have crystals under your feet, and you can sit on your computer and have your feet on crystals. You can use grounding mats as well. I mean, there is
you can use those as you sleep.
Research about those. I mean, some people say that they can work in a negative way. Others have.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I mean, David Wolf, I think, is a bit of an expert on the grounding mats, so I would research him. But ultimately, it's very much about how you feel, where you go. If you are feeling as though there are negative frequencies around you, remove yourself from that area. Or a lot of this is to do with diet as well. If you're eating junk, you are more susceptible to the toxins within these things if you eat healthily. But if you're sensitive, like I said with me, I eat healthily, I don't eat junk food, and yet I cannot use a mobile phone next to my ear. And recently, I mean, this is going back a year or so, one of the doctors, the GPs, suggested I had an MRI. I had to refuse because there's so much EMFs in an MRI scan. Absolutely no way could I go in it. And I am really concerned about airport scanning as well. I mean, I haven't been abroad for a decade or more, possibly even 15 years, I think. And we were talking about going abroad. And I said, well, I think in Britain, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in the UK, you might know because you've been abroad recently.
I've been scanned, but it's very random. Like I was so annoyed.
Well, don't they randomly pick you out?
Out of the whole group, it was just
and
me.
If you refuse, they will not let you on the plane.
I think they make it very awkward if you refuse.
I couldn't go through that scanner though.
I think they like really pat you down like in a big way. I don't really know.
Rather that than I mean, yeah. I read there is no alternative to the random scanner, because if you say no, you're basically saying to them, you know, I'm a terrorist, I'm carrying a bomb or whatever. But what you're really saying is, I can't go through your scans because of EMF sensitivity. Yeah. There's no way I could go through that scan. I mean, I just couldn't. So I don't know. I'm never going to go abroad again in the rest of my life.
But it doesn't. It's very rare that you get picked out. I was just unlucky.
Well, that's absolutely. But
well, hopefully,
do you take the chance and book a holiday, knowing that if you get picked, you can't go, because there's no way I could go through the
go
scan.
on a cruise.
Oh well, boats, absolutely. Boats might be the way to. I don't know. I know trains have got a lot of EMFs in.
They?
Apparently. I mean, there are things you can do, as I've said, but reduce your exposure as much as possible. There's a lot of information out there about this. One person I did read, Daniel Winter, the sort of physicist, but the spiritually aware physicist, talks lots about DNA and geometry. I read something he wrote, an article he wrote that was very much about EMF exposure and how to limit your exposure to these frequencies. One of the things I read that he said was sleeping on a bed that has metal in it, because of the metal conducting the negative EMFs, and the body just can't. It affects the natural frequencies of the body, the electrical frequencies of the body.
Don't sleep on a bed with metal.
Well, with me, when I read this article, I don't necessarily think, oh, Daniel Winter says that, so it must be right. The way I read something is, I'll tune in on it, and if my core being is utterly in alignment with the information I'm reading, then I know it's true. And that happened. My alignment was utterly, you know, the core energy of me was utterly in alignment with this material, and I knew it to be the case. And I was actually on a mattress, you know, with metal inside, and it was an organic mattress, a toxin-free mattress with no chemicals. So I'd done all the chemical research and understood how negative that was, but didn't understand about the metals. But if you want to know this information, it will come to you. You put out that question, or just the desire to be healthy and in alignment and in a place where you can healthily ascend, and the information will come to you. And so that my mattress was, my expensive chemical-free, toxin-free organic mattress was out the window. And no, absolutely do not sleep on metal.
Okay.
Is your mattress metal?
Yeah, I think it has some springs, and then it has some memory foam at the top. But I think next time I am seriously gonna consider.
You'll be going home tonight, so we're throwing the mattress away,
chucking out the window.
Like, you can't go and see Magenta anymore. You come home and throw the mattress out. Yeah. So I bought organic futon mattresses, which are chemical free, with no metal, and they're all made with natural materials and cotton, and they're just, you just can feel the difference. You really can. It was amazing actually when I switched to sleeping on those mattresses. I could actually feel the difference between, it was almost like on the metal mattress there was like a sort of a force field, like a locking, and I wasn't aware of it. An astral projection is much better if you are sleeping on a toxin free environment. if you have metal, it can actually affect your ability to get out of body, which is really important for your ascension process, to be able to experience
I've
non-locational
even got a
consciousness.
metal frame, like a lot of people do.
I did have a metal frame as well. The whole lot just was out the door.
Next bed is going to be wooden, and
I think we were on the sofa
You'll have
for
to
a
come
couple of
shopping with
nights.
me.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a bed shop round the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, wood is good. A wooden bed frame is
Wood
excellent
good.
because, well, obviously not perhaps the synthetic created plasticky wood, but genuine real wood
yeah,
doesn't conduct negative frequency. It actually enhances the natural frequency of the body. So, but go read Dan Winter. When I read that article, I got nothing but perfect alignment from him, to the point where I mean, obviously it's difficult to say everything, but the majority of things he's saying in his work is accurate and in alignment. So yeah, definitely go read some of his material. So should we do one more? You choose a question.
Have you both noticed telepathy ramping up this last few weeks? I personally have. I don't know about you.
Have you both noticed telepathy ramping up this last few weeks?
Synchronicities.
What I would say is there is a frequency and an energy that is conducive to these things being more pronounced. I personally have had telepathy around for a long time, so you know, for me it's always been quite high. That sounds so good. But it has, you know, so you know, it's always been quite high and sharp for me. Obviously I communicate with the 9, and that is telepathy, but there is what I've noticed is for me it's affected me personally in an emotional sense, but it isn't emotion. It's actually the feeling of the charge within the cells that creates the higher emotion, and I'm speaking here about bliss, euphoria, and ecstasy. Those emotions are higher heart emotions, and that's the way I would interpret this energy.
I've been noticing like the higher heart chakra coming online.
Absolutely.
I would say.
And that's the same thing
in
as
the last few weeks, especially.
Definitely, and that's the same thing as Kundalini, a mass sort of Kundalini, and that energy is very conducive for telepathy and channeling and downloads and psychic awareness and synchronicity. That's all part of that. So the answer to that question is yes. But someone else, Carmel Jane, hello. Do you think physical hypertension, high blood pressure, heart palpitations can be created from emotional heartache or heartbreak? Okay, well, I saw that you mentioned palpitations, and I know that with these higher frequencies, some individuals can actually have palpitations and then go off to the doctor and find that there's nothing wrong with them.
At 20 years old, I had like what I would say like a flutter now and then, and I'd feel it like in my throat. And I went to the doctor, and he was like, seriously, there's nothing wrong with you. I went back loads of times. And
Just the higher hearts coming online, and it's just that's happened to a lot of people.
It was scary, but it went, you know, it stopped happening eventually.
Yeah.
I don't really ever get it now and then, but at the time it was like, oh my god, I'm dying. But I was so young.
Yeah.
Obviously I knew deep down there was nothing physically wrong with me, but it was just very strange, a very strange feeling, like nothing I'd ever felt before. And it was at a point that I had opened up a lot. It was just after my dad had died, but I kind of delved even further into spirituality then, and my heart had just burst open from the grief, I guess. And I think partly it probably was grief, so I would say heartache and heartbreak can affect your heart and your heart chakra. Of course it can. We feel it, we know that innately, but also if you're on the spiritual path, you want to keep your heart open through any grief, and that can maybe that kind of caused a bit of like the palpitations in me. I don't really know, because I didn't want to shut off completely or anything.
This energy can cause that in some people. So these palpitations are kind of an ascension syndrome, if you like. Although don't ever put it down to that. If you've got heart palpitations, don't ever sit there and think, oh, it's the ascension. You know, like a lot of people will. Any health issue, get that checked out. You don't have to follow doctor's advice regarding medication or anything, but they're very good at giving diagnosis, or rather they are okay at giving diagnosis, perhaps not very good, but it's worth getting it checked out. But what Carmel is saying here is hypertension, high blood pressure and heart palpitations created from emotional heartache, heartbreak. It's not the heartache or heartbreak per se that's causing a direct causation to high blood pressure or to palpitations. What heartache does is because it's such an energy draining emotion on the body, it causes the opposite of cellular energy and energy body raising. It causes a sort of a slump within the energy body, if you like. It takes the energy sort of downwards, and that affects the nervous system and it affects the immune system. So the immune system is affected, and any issues within the body that are vulnerable issues, if you like, can then be created. So if you have a propensity to high blood pressure caused by something else that hasn't necessarily come out in your physical body, and then you're feeling heartache and heartbreak, which is, you know, stress, depression, and a very low mood. If that goes on and on and on, then that can trigger the propensity to the high blood pressure, but it could also trigger the propensity to several other health conditions, and the same with palpitations. So it's not really the causation of heartache causes palpitations, heartache causes high blood pressure. But repeated heartache can cause the weaker parts of the body that may be okay before. It can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, if you like. Having said all that, as you were saying, grief opened your heart up, and it can work in the opposite way, because you are integrating. If you are an aware individual, you can integrate grief and heartache and actually get positive results from the integration of that. It's only really where heartache goes on and on and on for a long time, or is extremely extreme.
Allow yourself to wall yourself off or close down, rather than, I don't know, like it can be so tempting when you're in that much pain. You're like, no, okay, I'm shutting off now.
Absolutely. Protection. It's a defense mechanism. Yeah, it's a defense mechanism. But it certainly isn't something that is necessarily completely unavoidable. If someone you love very, very much, a close family member, passes away and you feel grief, or if a relationship ends and you were very much in love with that person and didn't want the relationship to end, and so you're in a state of grief or heartache, it's not natural to just quickly transition through it and be fine within 24 hours and dancing around with rays of sunshine. It is normal to go through the grieving process. The grieving process is healing. One needs to look after oneself when you're in that stage. You need to make sure you have even more sleep, even more rest, even more good nutrition.
Yeah. That is the number one thing.
Absolutely.
When I was grieving, that I wished, I mean, I followed it at first, but I wish someone would say to me, you have to look after yourself.
And you said that to me.
Sleep. Yeah.
When I lost my dad back in September, the first thing you said to me was look after yourself. Yeah. And I said, I'd already picked that up. And also I feel that the person that you loved and have lost, and it may not be a person, that's not the reason why necessarily you're feeling heartache, but let's say it is a person that you've lost and you're grieving. If it's in the case of a loved one passing, transitioning, presumably they love you too, and they would not want you to be falling apart and grieving to the point where you're making yourself ill and getting high blood pressure and heart palpitations. They wouldn't want that. So you honor them by looking after yourself, but you don't miss the grief out. You experience the grief. You allow yourself to go through the grief. You allow yourself to feel that pain. And when you do it with an open heart, because you know that it's a healing process, no matter how painful it is, you will find that there is a part of you that simultaneously gives you a bliss, euphoria, ecstasy, energy, light beam, if you like, that heals you through the grief. So you feel grief and love simultaneously. That is what you were saying about keeping your heart open at the same time, rather than shutting down.
It is so hard.
It's really hard.
And there are other times where I probably have shut down. I know I have. And the
that's
times
normal
I've
as
done
well.
best is when I've kept my heart open through the grief.
The idea really here with ascension is not to be a superhuman being, and not to a lot of people tend to find such fault with themselves through ascension process, because they think, well, I must do this and I must do that, and I've got to be so perfect with, I need to meditate every day, and I mustn't do this, and you can actually try to be perfect, and really we are third dimensional beings that
right
are
now we are, and it is difficult sometimes.
It can be really hard, and you can have spiritual teachers that will say, oh, it's easy. I've had spiritual teachers say to me, it's so easy, open your heart, feel love, that's it. Well, yes, they're right. Open your heart and feel love, they're right,
but we're still dealing
we are living in a 3D world with challenges. All of us, every single one of us. It doesn't matter how connected we are or how many guides we can channel, or we are all going through the same thing, and that's why we need the collective. That's why we need the group. That's why
that is something that has been amazing, and probably a lot of you have noticed in the last 6 months, last year, especially the last 3-4 months, and this is something you've talked about, that the starseeds are finding each other now.
Yes.
The truthers and the spiritual people are coming together, and that is one of the most amazing things that I've ever witnessed.
Yes.
It's just, it felt like we were placed on different parts of the globe for a reason, and a lot of us felt isolated and alone in our work, and I feel that had a purpose and a reason. I don't really know exactly what, but something changed last year, and we're all kind of joining up again. It might not be physically, it might be online for now, but we're all coming together. And a lot of people now, where they used to feel alone in this journey and like, oh my God, what is this? Am I going mad? They're not feeling alone anymore. And this sense of community is something that we can kind of nurture, I think, and help each other through, because there'll be people who are further along that we can learn from, and there'll be people who have only just begun this path that we're going to need to be like, oh, it's okay, I went through that, and this will pass. And I think we can become like a massive support group for each other, with little support groups, like some will be little ones and they'll grow bigger, and I just think it's becoming like really lovely to see.
Yes, I agree.
Us all joining up.
I agree. I mean, on the one hand, we have all this chaos, and we have one perspective where it looks like the world is falling apart, and everyone is so stressed and suffering and so angry and so confused. And on the other side, we do have an amazing unity of individuals who are waking up. And there's still some infighting going on, but I agree with you. I think it's really coming together. The great gathering is really taking place, and we take such strength from that. Before I met anyone who I felt was like me, not when I first started channeling, but when I first started to communicate with the nine, before I got online, so like a decade ago. It's actually the 11th year now. Wow. Coming into 11th year in April, it'll be 11 years.
I've been following you all that time.
I know, how strange
YouTube.
Is that? I know, it's so
it's
strange.
Very strange.
When that first happened, and the nine were telling me these things, and I'm thinking, well, where's the? I feel so alone in this knowing, in this communication with the nine. And they would show me, well, you're not alone. There are loads and loads and loads of others, and the backup that you have. And they taught me to utilize the backup. Now, this was before I'd met anyone, because I hadn't gone online and even released one single video yet. But they showed me, and I saw all these people that were the same, with the same goal, the same trajectory, the same feeling of unity, and all part of this great gathering. And so they taught me to not lean on those people, because that's not the right energy, but to stand as if every individual does this from their perspective. So you stand as if you're in the front, you're leading, and everyone is behind you. They've got your back. They are backing you up, but you're the one that's the leader. So you're going into a new environment on your own, but you have the backup. I don't mean that I am a leader. What I mean is every single one of us is a leader. We all take the perspective of standing in front and having all this backup behind us. That's the great gathering. The other structure to view is that of a circle. We are all standing in a circle holding hands all across the world. And you'll have seen these photos of the globe where everyone's holding hands across the globe. And it's true. I mean, the awakening is amazing, and you can feel it. You can go into meditation and ask to see all the others that are in the same vibrational place as you, and it's phenomenal how many there are. So some people don't post on social media, and they don't talk.
That's only
but they are still doing this work. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're out there or not. But you said to me about why we were separate.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'll say there is, I asked the 9 this because it was isolating for a long time, and obviously for me being older than you, I've been isolated for longer because I've been sort of here longer.
I mean, even
like
websites like lightworkers.org that we used to both be on, and some of the people I've seen talking there, like Hello Ever, I know we were on there. And even then, although we had each other, there didn't feel like we were, I don't know how to explain. It doesn't feel like it does now, like that we're truly being able to connect and come together and work together almost.
The telepathy, and that's what this other person was saying, the telepathy as in the connection with those individuals is extremely profound, ramping up all the time as you're becoming part of that collective consciousness. But I asked the 9 why we're so isolated for so long. And they explained it like this. If you look at the star seeds, so you look at the globe, the world, whether you see it as round or flat or whatever, you look at the world and all the people on it, and all the star seeds strategically placed, which they are, strategically placed apart from one another and in isolation, because they were all in a training phase and all in a waiting phase, waiting for the right time. If one star seed rises up and shines their light, they can be seen and that light can be extinguished. But if all the star seeds rise together, it's such a powerful force, it cannot be extinguished. There's too many.
That makes sense.
That's why we were isolated. We were kept. It wasn't that we were isolated. We were kept safe. That's really
protected.
It was safety, not isolation. But we experienced isolation. We knew this before we incarnated. We would have been briefed about the mission, and we would have been told, look, you're going to be isolated for 20 years, 30 years, whatever. You're going to feel completely different to everyone around you. But everyone was given some support, especially those who are were destined to be incredibly active in this movement. They would have had some support, but not all the time, because they had to do things on their own. But when they really got to rock bottom, that support would come in. It's like there was always a fail-safe. That's what the 9 call it, the fail-safe program. There was always this fail-safe to be there to assist you. So you couldn't wake up fully. If you woke up too early, then you would be even more isolated because you'd feel even more different. But you don't want to not wake up at all, as can happen to star-seeded individuals that get lost in the sort of karmic energy of Earth. There's a fail-safe. So there's thousands of triggers, and we're having more and more people triggered this year in 2019. I see an even more greater awakening from those who are.
We are in the Great Awakening, 100%.
Slap bang in the middle of it,
And it has multiple meanings.
And the more of us that awaken, the stronger the service to others energy, which is not only creating this 5th dimensional new Earth, but it is also transforming the third dimension, bringing the third dimension to a place of freedom. So that control structure that's been in place and really had its grips on the planet without any real threat to it is now crumbling and falling. That's what we're doing, and we don't have to even actively take part in that for our energy and our consciousness to actually be part of that. I mean, I was watching, I was saying to you earlier, wasn't I, about, I don't know, should we mention names, 2 service to self individuals that I saw on television. It's almost as though they have layer after layer after layer after layer of false screening, so that if you see that one, they can jump to this one. If you see that one, they can jump. Well, it was Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, okay? That's who I was talking about. So they've got these layers, and it's almost like, you know, you see one layer, or you expose one layer, and they've got another one. They've got all these false screens they can jump to. And when I saw them, it's like they've got down to the last layer, and it had gone. The layers have gone, and they were utterly exposed. Obviously, those who are blinded to this and still are falling for the false narrative, they're seeing the false screen playing around in their own head. What I'm saying is that the individuals aren't able to broadcast the false signal anymore. So starseeds who've already awoken from that and have moved away from that false narrative, regardless of where their awakening is, whether they're in the very earliest stages of awakening or whether they've been spiritually aware and meditating for 50 years, they can see so clearly because the barriers have gone. They are exposed, and what's in them is a deep, deep worry.
Yeah, they look scared.
Deep, deep worry. And it's very like, oh my goodness, this is what I feel from them. If I were to translate the energy, it's very much, oh my goodness, I never dreamed we would ever be here. And that's so good for us because they are no longer able to plan their chess game. Now, some of them still are trying. And yes, there's still a control structure in place. It hasn't gone completely, but it's so exposed. It's so falling apart because of the great gathering, because of the light shining. You know, I've sort of said this over and over in so many different ways, and it's so evident, isn't it? Wouldn't you say? You feel it too?
Yeah, completely. Like really ramped up last year. I just feel we're right bang in the middle of it, and I feel this year is going to be just pivotal.
Same, totally. So, thank you for listening to our impromptu Facebook Live, and we have 108 comments.
We'll read
108.
Them. Yeah.
Are you aware of the significance of 108?
No.
So 108, 108 is the sacred number. It is the number of source. It is the number of God. If you add it up numerologically, it adds up to 9. It is 108 is it is the number of the primordial sound. It is the number of creation.
Wow.
And so 108 comments just as we finish. Isn't that good?
It's got to mean something. It's a sign.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, well, yeah, it's been really nice. And we had I don't know how many people. Can you see how many people came in the chat room?
At one point there it was 50 something.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. We didn't plan this. We just,
No.
yeah. Well, actually, Dawn is going to be my bridesmaid, aren't you? When I get married in March, and she came round to try bridesmaid dresses on.
I did.
And then we
It's
just
very
said, shall we do a
exciting.
Facebook? So yeah,
It's been really good.
you're going to be a beautiful bridesmaid.
You're gonna be a
My
stunning
daughter of the
bride.
flame.
Yeah.
She's my daughter of the flame. Right then. Well, we'll say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you
Have a lovely
again.
Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.